Good morning, Rabotai. Breakfast today is, first of all, not in a garbage bag. Second of all, is sponsored in honor of Sammy Sutton and all that he does to help everybody in the many ways that he does so. Sponsored by Rafi Hasbani and family. Hazaku Baruch. Rabotai, there's a beautiful understanding in this week's parasha that I think oftentimes is really doesn't get the credit it deserves. And that is as follows. We learn about Yaakov Avinu, that Yaakov Avinu represents a specific character trait. Each one of the Avot, they represented a certain character trait. You had Abraham, Chesed, Yitzchak, Givuraz, inner strength. What is Yaakov's midah? His midah is emet, tiferet. Okay? Now this concept of emet, where do we find that Yaakov represents emet? The pasuk says, Titen emet liYaakov, Chesed Abraham. Okay? Why Yitzchak is not brought down in that pasuk, I'll let you think about it. Interesting, right? Yeah. Not only that, why is it out of order? Shouldn't it say Titen Chesed LaAvraham Emet LiYaakov? So again, second question. I'll leave you to think about that. Either way, what we see from the pasuk is that Yaakov was considered the man of truth, Ish Emet. Now the problem is, when you meet Yaakov Avinu, he doesn't actually seem like he's standing up to that which is his name. Like, that would be, it seems like calling me Mr. In Shape. You know, it's a little bit problematic, because you could see that there's, that's not I'm not exactly what my name seems to indicate. Right? What happens? He's told by his mother to dress up, wear the fur on your arm. Esav must have been Sephardic, that his arm was, literally the amount of hair of an actual goat. Right? Amazing thing. Okay, and go in, and he'll feel you, and he'll think that you're Esav, right? And Yaakov goes in and he does it. He tricks his father. And his father asks him, who are you? And he says, Anochi Esav Bighorah, I am Esav, your firstborn son. Minen Loen, where does the man of truth come off? Coming to his father and telling him, I'm Esav, your firstborn, to get the beracha. How could that be a man of truth? Very famous question. There's a lot of answers to this question, but I just want to share with you a powerful answer from Rabbi Galinsky, a beautiful, beautiful answer, which I think also communicates what it was that Yaakov Avinu was doing, and also a deeper insight into the topic at hand as well. The pasuk tells us that when Yitzchak heard that Yaakov had tricked him and came to take the beracha, what's Yitzchak's response? I would have imagined that if Yaakov needed to trick his father, then when his father found out that he tricked him, what would he say? He should have said to him, the beracha shouldn't work. Invalid. It doesn't count. We gotta the ballot, where the election was rigged. That's what he should have said. Right? I do not accept it. I don't accept the results. That's what Yaakov Avinu, Yitzhak should have said to Yaakov. But in fact, what does he say? Gam Baruch Yihiyeh. Oh, he took the blessings? Yeah, 100%. You should get the blessings. So we see over here that it's more than meets the eyes, similar to the Transformers. Rabotai, there's a fantastic insight here. And Rabbi Galinsky explains it with a mashal, which is so spot on, I can't explain. Rabbi Galinsky once came to a bus stop, and he sees an old man huddled over with a cane. And not only is he holding a cane in one hand, the guy has a stick in his other hand. And he's moving the stick like this, till he gets to the bus stop. Not only is he old, not only is he decrepit, not only is he bent over, he can't see, he's blind. Anyway, the rabbi gets up there, Hadad's moving his stick around, he smacks him in the leg, he sees somebody's there, he says, Slicha, somebody's here, are you here? The rabbi says, yeah, I'm here. Anochi Yaakov Galinsky. I'm here. He says, could you help me, please? The rabbi says, of course, how can I help? He says, I'm a Holocaust survivor. Baruch Hashem, I made it up to move up to the land of Israel. I had children. Not only I have children, I have grandchildren. And tonight, my grandson is getting married in Yerushalayim. And I'm on my way to the wedding. But I can't see. Please, could you help me, he says. Let me know when the 870 bus arrives and point me to the right bus. Tell me the bus to get on. The rabbi says to the old man, he says, Mechila, I'm happy to help you. He says, but the 870 bus goes to Afula. The 470 bus goes to Yerushalayim. So I'll tell you when that bus, the old guy says, no. He says, I need the 870 bus. The rabbi says, but the sign, it says the 870 is going to Afula. The guy says, no, don't mix me up. And he starts getting agitated. He says, I don't want to miss the wedding. You just need to tell me, when is the 870 bus going to come? Just tell me when the bus is. The rabbi's trying to argue with him. Doesn't work. You ever meet someone, an elderly person, stubborn, maybe he's not 100%, they got 870, the rabbi knows if he sticks him on the 870, he's going to go to Aflu, he's going to miss the wedding. The rabbi's sitting there in his mind and he's thinking, what should I do? The guy wants to get on the 870, I put him on the 870, he missed the wedding. If I put him on the 470, the bus he doesn't want to get on, he's actually going to get to the destination he wants to get to. What should I do? What would you do? You put the guy on the 870? Of course you put him on the 470. That's the direction he's trying to go to. Rabbi Galinsky said, Rabotai, that's Yitzhak Avinu. He's an elderly man and he's blind. He's trying to give the beracha to the one who's supposed to get it. But he thinks that the one who's supposed to get it is the 870. So what happens? Yaakov comes in and he says, Rohi, Anochi Esav Bichorecha. I'm the 870. And he sticks him on the 470 bus. What's the proof that that's what Yitzhak Avinu wanted when he actually heard Vayakveni Ze Pa'amayim, that Esav had sold the Bighorah, that Esav had done so? What happens? He's happy to give the Berachah to Yaakov. That was the destination he wanted. He just didn't know where exactly he was putting it because he was blind. Rabotai, I have a question that bothered me my whole life. My whole life I was bothered with this question from the time I was a little child. When Esav says to Yitzhak Avinu, Vayakveni Ze Pa'amayim, not only did he take the Berachot, but once upon a time, he tricked me into selling him the Bighorah. Yitzhak says, good, should go to Yaakov. Why didn't Yaakov sit down with his father? Instead of wearing the thing, coming in, telling him somebody else, why doesn't he sit down with his father and say to him, Abba, I bought the Bighorah, it's mine. Here's the shtar. I signed it, there's 2 witnesses, okay? Here, Fadal, look at it. Have someone look it over. The answer is, Rabotai, that such a thing, that Yitzhak could not believe about his son. Such a thing that he would sell the Bighorah, no matter how many shtarot you would produce. Yitzhak Avinu wasn't capable of understanding that about Esav, his own son. It took Esav himself saying, I sold the Bighorah v'yakveni ze pa'amayim, so that Yitzhak could believe it. So what's Yaakov to do? You see, our rabbis teach us that there's 2 separate things. One element of telling the truth is speaking words of truth. But the second is about causing truth to happen. We know there's a pasuk that says, Emet me'eretz titzmach. Truth, it bubbles up, it's produced by it, grows from the earth. And what does that mean? The process of something growing organically is that as time goes on, a plant comes. You don't throw a seed in the ground and poof, a tree pops up. The same thing is true, Rabotai. In our world, unfortunately, a lot that seems to be true masquerades as truth, but actually is sheker. You know, Esav's angel, next week's parasha, we find that Esav's angel has a throwdown with Yaakov Avinu. And he's fighting Yaakov. And the Midrash tells us something fascinating. Sometimes the angel would seem to Yaakov like as if he was a robber, a warrior. And sometimes the angel would appear to Yaakov as if he was Zaken Talmid Chacham. And sometimes he would appear to Yaakov as if he was a Ro'eh Tzon, a shepherd. Yaakov Avinu, by the end of the night, has one question for the angel. What's your name? Who are you? I don't understand. You're this, you're this, you're this. Rabotai, the angel of a person is that which gives him koach. It's the spiritual representation of what the person is. the angel of Esav changes faces faster than you could say Hachu, because Esav changes faces faster than you could say Hachu. Esav to his father made believe as if he was a big tzaddik. Oh, Abba, how do I take maaser of salt? You don't have to take maaser of salt. The guy presented himself as if he was uber religious. Abba, how big does my black hat have to be? You understand? He was going further and further and further, making his father think, if these are the questions he's asking me, how much more so, right? The other day, someone called me to ask about a shidduch. They said, there's a guy, in your synagogue, seems like a very nice guy. What kind of guy is he? Religious guy? I said, listen, the guy called to ask me if he needs to take to the kelim mikveh, to dip in the mikveh, the filter of his Brita pitcher. That's a guy. If he's asking you questions like that, right? Had that's not stealing from people. Had that's not, breaking Shabbat. He's asking beautiful questions. But Esav was someone that was always changing his face, pretending to this one like he's this one. Sometimes you have people like that. In the synagogue, they seem very religious. Then outside, they're, clubbing hard at anybody. Then outside, another thing, they're breaking all sorts of things just to seal the deal. They'll lie, they'll sell their mother down the river. So who they're standing in front of they present a different face. Yaakov Avinu was a man of truth. There was no way he could convince Yitzchak that the Esav he was looking at was not the Esav. Because Yitzchak is saying, look, I know him. I see him every day. I know who Esav is. He would never do that. Yaakov has to come to him. And what does Yaakov do? He dresses as if he's someone else. Once he feels Yaakov's hands, and Yaakov has the voice, what does he do? He speaks to his father. He says, please get up, father. Please sit down. Hashem, help me in the field. Can I ask you a question? You're going to go to such a distance to change your arm hair, right? You can't say to your father, get up. You can't say to your dad, yeah, I did well in hunting. You have to say, Yishtabach Shemo. Hashem brought all the hunting to me today. If you're trying to fool him, go all the way. They say certain actors, there's a method of acting called method acting. That you get so into the zone that if you're playing a role, then for 6 months, however long it takes you to film, you don't break character. Why? You want to sell the role. Yaakov, you're trying to fool your father. You went the distance to go and get the goats and do everything. He's wearing his clothes that he got from his mother's closet. Right? Why doesn't he just change the way he speaks? Rabotai, that's exactly what Yaakov was trying to do. He was trying to show his father, look, you see, it seems like it's one thing. But then you hear the voice, it sounds like something else. That's what Esav is doing to you. He's giving you his voice on the one side, asking you the questions, but on the other hand, he's the hairy guy out there in the world being a ruthless murderer. Don't you understand that it's not as if he's not representing the emet? You're not taking the right bus to get to the destination you're trying to get to. Rabotai, I learned from this an unbelievable idea. This concept that telling the truth sometimes is not about the words that we use, but about achieving the outcome that we want. Someone calls you and asks you about a shidduch. They want to know, what's this guy like? Is he a legit person, not a legit person? They ask you about a business deal. Rabotai, and then they ask you a question, actually, which does not tell you or tell them the answer to the question that they're really asking. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a guy, very religious guy, comes to you, wants to know if you should do business with someone who's not so religious. And he says to you, listen, I don't want to get messed over in business by this guy. I don't want to, have the guy tell me one thing and then not deliver. Is he a religious guy? Could I trust him? Rabotai, those two things are not the same question. Is he a religious guy and can I trust him are not the same question. You have guys that don't wear hats, they don't wear kippas, they don't wear tzitzit, they don't come to shul, and they're emet people. And you have people that wear everything, and they're dishonest people, Rabotai. It's a sad thing when you come across scenarios like that, but it's unfortunately something that I've seen before in my life. So what's the answer to that question? The answer to the question that I'll give such a person is, I'll say, I don't know what he eats in his kitchen. I don't know what he does in his bedroom. I don't know where he is, But I could tell you that I know this guy tells the truth, and you could rely on him. That's the emet answer to that. What could I have said? I could have used emet language. I don't know, I never see the guy in shul. I didn't answer the real question. I wasn't mechaven. I didn't guide the person to the right place. Rabotai, there's two parts to emet. And yes, it is true that the words that come out of your mouth should be true, 100%. But Rabotai, there's a responsibility that we have in this world to allow emet to grow from the earth, to have an organic process develop into emet. Rabotai, I need to express this. You have a guy who's doing the wrong thing, and you come, hey, you make him feel like he's $1 billion. It's not emet. It's not emet. This is the best guy ever. It's not. The words might be you're using. The words might be correct, but to flatter a sinner, to be machanif to a rasha is considered to be one of the worst things in the world. Because how's a person like that ever going to develop if every time he meets someone who's in the position to influence him, tells him, there's nobody like you, you're the best, Sadiq. Sometimes we're liberal with the language that we're using. If I'm a Sadiq, the rabbi said maybe, I don't need to change anything. Rabotai, it's not only upon us to say emet with our words, but to allow for that's not emet, that you're causing a rasha to feel comfortable with his rishut. You also have to make the person recognize when he's not doing something right. He's not doing something right. I'll tell you once, Rabbi Galinsky was someone who was a fierce advocate for emet. I've told you stories before about Rabbi Galinsky. But Rabotai, he was someone who was very careful. And he saw a yeshiva, they made a fundraising event to keep the doors open. They needed to pay salaries, feed pay the teachers, keep the building, yeshiva, they're learning Torah, a Jewish school, right? What could be a better cause than that? And they did an event, and they had a bingo event, okay? And everyone would come, and you play the game, and money to enter. They raised money like that. Rav Yaakov comes to him and he says, what's a yeshiva doing running a bingo event? He says, I feel like it's like gambling. Now, whether it is or it isn't, is not really the point of the story. So don't ask me now, I went to an event. Not the question. He said, it's a gambling event. The man answered him. He said, but Rabbi, it's not harmless. It's not they're not going to a casino. They're coming to spend some money to sponsor, to help the yeshiva keep its doors open. The rabbi said, who told you that your organization and that your school needs to stay open? If you're not teaching them Torah, Hashem will figure out a way to open up another yeshiva. If it's not the right thing to do, then the ends don't justify the means. If it's not emet, so then what is your school standing for? You're going to use a sheker way? He was very strict with people, that they were getting grants from the government. This like that. Did you tell the absolute truth in the document? Did you change what your organization is about in order to fit into the category? How dare you? I'm doing it for the sake of Torah. The Torah doesn't need you to lie for it. God doesn't need sheker in order to give you. And if it requires sheker for you to stay open, then you're not supposed to stay open. That's the only way to keep your doors open. It's God's message that you're not an emet. You're not an emet organization. And I'll end with this, Rabotai. Rabbi Nosson Sherman's nephew once came to him and said, I have a great story for you. He says, go ahead. He says, one of my guys who prays in my shul, he went to a certain store in the neighborhood, and the guy was selling clothing, fashion, whatever. So he wanted to buy something. I don't know if it was a jacket, whatever. He says, I want to buy the jacket. How much is the jacket? The guy says, 200. He says, 200? Okay. He goes, could you give it to me for 150? A little bit expensive. I don't usually spend that much. Give me one. The guy says, listen, I buy it from the manufacturer. It costs me $125. I sell to you $150. I can't keep the lights on. Mechila, I would love to, but but 200 is my price. The guy says, look, I hear, you only bought. Okay, here's 200. A week later, the guy gets the bill from his supplier, and he sees that the jacket actually, it wasn't 125, it was 100. Now he's thinking, he calls the guy back. Guy gets a phone call. The man in the Rabbi Sherman's nephew's shul, and he says, "Hi, I'm calling you from the store." He says, "When I sold you the jacket and you agreed, you said pay 200, right?" He says, "I told you that my cost was 125, but actually I got my bill. It's 100." He says, "And I know that you gave me the 200 because I told you that was my profit margin. But if you would have known that my profit margin was larger, I don't know if you would have agreed to pay me 200. 200 was the price of the jacket." It's not like he's ripping him off. He's telling him, he just told him that was the price differential. Once that wasn't true, he felt the need to call him back and say to him, it's not 125, it was 100. Is it okay? He's still happy with the 200 price. The guy told him, I never saw such honesty. Fadda, keep the money. Hazaku Baruch. By the way, lesson, when you're honest, you don't lose. But beyond that, he says to Rabbi Sherman, how honest is this guy? You're shaking your heads. Wow, everyone, wow. Rabbi Sherman looks at his nephew, and he shakes his head. He says, it's a beautiful story. But what a shame it is that we are impressed with people who are honest. That's how our world should be. We should be surprised when someone is not acting that way. Rabotai, sometimes a person thinks to themselves, business, it's business. Let me tell him this is what I bought it for. Let me tell him I'm only making. Let me tell him. Rabotai, not only are the words that you're saying not true, you are a contributing factor to the fact that emet in this world is a surprising thing. The more we chip away at this, the more we teach with our words and with our actions, that we have to live lives of emet, that we need to represent, that truth and honesty shouldn't be surprising. It should be the norm. The less surprising it will be. And we will turn an alma de shikra, a world of lies. A world that sells you everything in order to sell you a product. We will turn that world into a world of emet, the world of Mashiach. Amen. Rabbi Hananya ben